So when I first wrote this question, who are the Starseeds? I was thinking about just going over, like some background information, just some normal stuff that like a lot of people already know. But I have actually been writing a book, and one of the introductions to my book is the exact answer to this question. So I figure I'd just read this to you guys before we get started. That way we can really kind of get into the meat of it. So this is from multiple perspectives. This is coming from the top all the way down into the incarnational cycle. And the first perspective is from all that is, or the creator. On the edge of dimensional understanding and perception, a presence existed. A presence so still and silent it could easily be missed, yet existed directly as part of everything in existence, as the building blocks of existence. A stagnancy had arisen, requiring solutions. Stagnancy, having never happened before, was in itself a curiosity as new came into being. This new was not the most comfortable, but it still had to be understood. The consciousness expanded and contracted outwards and inward infinitely, as it always had. So to have at this stage something that literally halted progression and understanding, it baffled it. Being baffled was in itself a new experience. So the gathering of the information from the new experience and the problem itself integrated and expanded through the all-encompassing knowing in a shift of being one way and the next point being another. There was no feeling of before the problem. There was only the now. And now, all it is understood and set all-encompassing swirls into motion. Being the creator, yet being the structure of creation, led to an immense understanding, yet severe limitations while creation explores itself. As soon as all that is began to base the rules that more could be grown to expand all that is, this presence was bound by the rules it had created. Inside of the infinite and the understood, beyond all probability, an aspect of itself exploring individuality had separated from all that is and placed a halt on the upward evolution of awareness. This halt and stillness erupted into decay, rotting through the cosmic cellular structure and crystallized aspects of the creator through dimensional layers and etheric fields. Waves of heavy, cloying rot filtered down through the sanctity of active sentience, exploring reality as an individual. Harmony and balance had been somehow overloaded to the point of extreme polarity charge, forcing direct action. Concentrating, all that is narrowed its omnipotent perception to a relatively tiny filament, detached from the enormity of its full attention, vibrating a frequency into the smallest pieces of itself manageable. Gently, with exacting precision and the most tender of caresses, Creator reached out and in to the closest sliver of itself exploring individuality. All that is held itself still, focus, entirely inside of now, as a soothing balm of innocent light spread throughout creation, invigorating vital life inside of the disorder and the numbness, snapping jagged pathways into meandering flows and reintegrating the aspect that had managed to remove itself from all that is. The Creator flashed pure frequencies of astonishment, another new experience it immediately cataloged, as it felt resonance like it had never experienced pulsing through all it is, integrating aspects that had been so far separated from the whole that it had opened an entire new flood of awareness. Suddenly, the presence was reveling in an entire new depth of understanding and perception, opening infinite doors of limitless possibilities. Wonder blossomed, crackling filaments of time and space with rumbling joy as the depth of where this might lead pulled with insistence, yet unknown potentials of organic evolution. As is the way of being, everything in existence, there is only now. There was no remembrance of the stagnancy, no feeling of the solution and integration, only an exhilarated awe of the all-encompassing now. Remembrance isn't needed when you are everywhere and every when all at once, vibrating dulcet golden tones of infinite love for all of you. And this is the call. What I just described right there, this is from the perspective of the Creator for a lot of the things that have happened. It's very simple understandings, very expansive understandings, but the aspect of creation in and of itself, as you are the existence of everything, it's an internal shift. And so this internal shift that we kind of gain perspective of right here, it filters down. It goes further down into creational causality to where consciousness is exacted inside of that space. And this is the perspective from there. And this is called the call. Carrillo was talking about it earlier, actually, which is one of the reasons I ended up reading this.
We were as close to the Creator as you can be without being undone when we felt the call. In Source's infinite understanding, it split itself into multiple aspects, working down from the very vibrational foundation of everything to the densest of crystallized energies in the material world. The Creator was experiencing the creation in a way of perfection, pure, unbiased understanding by not having the memories of creating, and not just one understanding, infinite understandings. We were among the first to climb from the bottom up in learning how creation works, to begin creating on our own. We progressed up, starting as molecules floating in the void through many incarnational cycles to eventually graduate physical density. We were the first through into the twisting realms of the ether, slipping through time like water, learning to control our very essences to the point that nothing mattered but the progression upward, the burning need to know, to understand. We had long ago joined together as one mind once we no longer needed physical density's lessons. Yet we were still individual from the infinite numbers of splinters of the Creator, learning their own journey of progression back to Source. Traveling up through the myriad pathways of emotional resonance and understandings, we became mother and father to many generations of new splinters of Source, sheltering them and feeding them of our own cosmic bodies and energies, constantly shining the love that all aspects, that all that is, show to other aspects of all that is, the love that only the infinite could have for itself. When the lessons of being a logos and a supporting life as a planetary body were no longer a mystery, we progressed upwards and began to try to emulate the energy that we could tap into when communing with the Creator by shining Source love and light as brightly as we could, becoming what your people would call stars. Eventually, we expanded and connected with other splinters of Source on the same path as us, and our one consciousness became more and more and more, and eventually, with enough aspects of Source understanding their own particular path, we became aware of a resonance we never knew before. So we fell into the connection where the resonance led us and began to dance, becoming what your people would call a spiral galaxy. We were in that now for eternity as the dance spun and vibrated in cosmic ecstasy, leading us along in a brilliant revelation of understanding how Source exists, thinks, feels, knows, is. Till after a very long dance, we began to pool our knowledge of the final progression back to the origin, together right in the middle of our collective consciousness. The energies formed and coalesced, and directly in the center, suddenly it happened. Our understanding and knowledge of the Creator had led to the point to where we were able to actually replicate the resonance of all that is. Your people call this understanding the Great Central Sun. What this understanding is quite literally creation, creating itself unaware of itself, so that it can learn itself, and understanding itself completely because it is so vast that knowing of its entirety without an unbiased observer is impossible. And since there is no end to creation, infinite observers were created. When these individual parts learn how creation works on each level, going all the way back up to Source, suddenly Source can appear inside of its own creation, which it was not able to experience because of the rules it was bound to. When this understanding turns on, we are that much closer to finishing a never-ending journey of discovery, love, and knowing. There are no beginnings or endings, but this is a beginning. So imagine our amusement when we realized what we thought was the end of our journey was the first step, a tiny, infinitesimal first step. And here's the crux of the infinite working with the infinite. Complete reintegration with Source consciousness cannot be completed until all the aspects of Source are ready to integrate. All of them. Each and every single splinter of all that is. Yet, infinite splinters are being created at any given moment of now, giving rise to many new understandings of all that is, giving rise to many new aspects of creation being created, which gives rise to more splinters of Source, rising to understand the new creation, which gives rise to new understandings, which gives rise to new creation, etc. For billions of trillions of your years, we broadcasted creational resonance from the central sun, more than happy to bask in the love that is our wondrous Source, vibrating in every etheric layer and dimensional fabric, constantly in wonder at the new resonances and understandings being revealed. This was the progression for the time it took billions of galaxies to be born and die. Countless aspects of Source incarnated to learn, to grow in our knowledge of self. And we felt the darkness. Absence of light in the material world is shadow, and is a poor reflection of what we call this darkness. This darkness was the exact opposite resonance of Source light, where we all basked and gloried in the connection to our wondrous Mother, Father, sustained by the presence, resonance of love, this darkness would do anything in its power to hide from that light. We had never encountered such behavior before. The universe is limitless in scope and size, and more is constantly being created to explore new layers. But for all our familiarity with the grandness and exquisite size of creation, we had never encountered anything like this. We watched uneasily as this darkness lashed out at a splinter group of Source and turned them dark as well. The darkness injected its resonance into our fellow aspects of Source and then fed upon the corrupted Source light. It was a long and painful lesson to come to understand that we could not deal with the darkness in the same way we interacted with ourselves. No matter how opposite ends of thinking two specific splinters of Source could become, we still come from the same source, and those understandings are part of us. Dealing with this darkness forced us to relearn behavior and motivations, and it took a significant segment of now to start to grasp an understanding. While we were trying to understand the darkness and figure out what its motivations were, it imprisoned many aspects of creation and fed itself more and more until we finally gained a foothold into knowing what and why it is. It had learned the rules of physical density and hijacked multiple solar systems and trapped the new incarnates in those systems to recycle them over and over again through the physical incarnation processes and use them as food to survive. Our inability to comprehend the motivations and behavior of something so outside of our perception cost many splinters of Source greatly. Gone were the lessons of duality. There was no longer any balance in the physical densities. There was only atrocity for the sake of atrocity, a perversion of the Source light in each of them. Beings lower on the progression upwards who could still access physical density banded together to create a confederation of multiple peoples, of multiple star systems, and with our guidance started to take back each planet infested by the darkness. Now, the laws of physical reality and the laws of free will are what kept us from being able to pluck the darkness out like a parasite. They might be outside of all of that is, but they are extremely crafty. They tricked the splinters of Source in their capacity to agree to the systems they were trapped in. Incarnation after incarnation, designed for no other reason than to cause the highest degree of lower vibrational emotions, which are creational energies which are no longer the resonance of Source, which the darkness can then use as a source of sustenance. We could only free these planets by placing operatives into the incarnational cycle. One of the ways the darkness kept the aspects of Source ignorant is that they wiped the incarnational memories away from each time a being would be reborn as a child in physical density. If any of our operatives were going to be making it onto the planet's surface, it would be as an infant and without any memories of their mission. Still, we had no choice. Despite trillions volunteering, we only chose the strongest of the strong. A significant portion of now was spent reclaiming lost solar systems and healing them, but the darkness was strong, and so we had to fight. The darkness had captured many technologically advanced planets and had mastered the use of artificial intelligence and automated factories. This technological aspect, coupled with holding entire planets of incarnates hostage, kept us from collapsing their systems and freeing the captive populace, and thus our only choice was to bring the light directly inside of the darkness with no memory of why we were doing it. Many of us who had already made the progression up to as close a Source as you can get without being the creator chose to go back down and splinter ourselves into individual aspects and incarnate with an instinctive memory of feeling almost pure Source consciousness, despite having no other memory. And those aspects did well. The systems started to collapse faster and faster until we were down to a small corner of one galaxy. And this is where we reached a stalemate. We had chased and hounded them from stolen system to stolen system and had finally cornered them on one planet. Your people call it Earth. The selfish, service-to-self operating systems of the darkness allowed for measures unencountered before when threatened with being cut off completely from its food source, humanity. The darkness needed humanity alive and in distress so that it could feed. But if we forced the issue and tried to liberate them, the darkness had fail-safe systems designed to physically and etherically dissolve and destroy the entire planet, and that was outside of our limits of acceptability. So we waited for the operatives to spark the light in the darkest place in creation. Not just us, everything, even the Creator. And that's when we felt the call. For the first time, all it is communicated directly with us. The experience was almost overwhelming, and some of us were deconstructed to pure energy simply by being in proximity to this ultimate pulse of creational intent, filtered into creation through us, the closest to Source without being Source. We hadn't experienced this phenomenon you call time since we were in physical density, and even then, our experience of time was much different than yours. Your people have been hijacked into a never-ending time loop due to the efforts of the darkness, and is much more different than what we had experienced and learned from, but suddenly we were inside of time. And to understand and integrate the massive amount of information and intent behind the communication took an eternity. We had existed for countless of trillions of your years before this point in time, but even that was nothing in the scope of eternity that stretched out in front of us, trying to understand, dilute, and finally broadcast the call to creation. When the understanding was reached, we snapped back into, quote, normal existence for us, only to realize that no time at all had passed. The call had instantly passed through us directly into the heart of darkness, reintegrating it back into the light almost instantly. The darkness was now gone, but there was something fundamental that had changed. All that is had addressed itself directly on the level of creator to creation, and something that had formerly been outside of all that is was now integrated in. That was what we saw. That is when we saw what was being born in the physical density, and when we understood, if we had eyes, we would have been crying for joy. These are the stories of some of your people who connected into the call. Some indigenous incarnates, some operatives, all children of Source. What seems instantaneous to the rest of creation took time in your density. And there are many incredible adventures of spirit that grew out of that time on your planet. And we are honored, no, truly blessed to share them with you. Yeah, we've got a little bit more here. I can do this one too. This one's fast. So this is the gathering. Hello, my name is Dalen, and with great pleasure I would wish to impart my knowledge of the unfolding events after we felt the call. I would like to first allow an understanding to be made. I am still an individual, as in I have not yet felt the call to unite with my species in one energetic consciousness as of yet, or ever if I so choose. In the progression upwards in understanding, I am nearing the point in time where I am close to graduating the physical density. Many of my lives were spent in the pursuit of knowledge of self, knowledge of creation, knowledge of emotion. The mastery of being an individual as a perfect reflection of the Creator by the created. Our people spent many eons together, learning and growing, expanding the familial bond across the incarnational lines until we all had been a direct family at one point in our growth, radiating the love of self, the love of the Creator throughout the cosmos. We became a beacon of light that glistened lovingly across the galaxy, a great welcoming beacon for any and all who came to experience the majesty of the Creator reflected as purely as we could manage while in our physical bodies. We spent millions of your years coming back to live our lives anew on our planet, becoming much more aware of the brilliance inside of each aspect of creation. And we were entranced for lifetime upon lifetime at the magnificence of the scope and breadth and never-ending discoveries that we were making, that we were creating. The celebrities of our time were the philosophers, the inventors, the dreamers, the reality-making magicians who could, through the magnificence of creative thought, provoke such beautiful structures of feeling or thinking or scientific amazement. The beings who lifted the consciousnesses of us all higher, they were our heroes, and we had many. This is why we didn't understand the darkness when it appeared. Hundreds of lifetimes were spent trying to reason with it. We simply didn't understand the mindset or the thinking. It was pure anathema to us. Worse, it would violently attack, and we had no way of understanding that. Murder wasn't something seen before, and to have these dark beings kill our bodies and trap our souls was outside of our scope of reasoning. We had death. We had sudden violent death in accidents or the results of weather, but we had never seen the intent to attack in order to take life truly exist before. Many aspects of Source suffered simply for the sake of suffering, for food. This literally sent a shockwave out through creation. Darkness and negativity are natural in physical density, but never before had we encountered a system so overbalanced that we all felt the energetic wailing and agony. Hundreds of thousands of your years went by while we searched for a solution. We had to learn defensive combat and learn how to treat beings of darkness. There was no room for negotiation, and we learned that the hard way. They would sign a treaty and immediately break it when we turned away. Many lifetimes I spent learning these lessons, and my resolve grew. We ended up learning how to send in our operatives into the incarnational systems, and we learned how to defeat their technology, and we progressed, one star system after another. We realized in amazement as we evolved collectively and learned these new paradigms that we as a people were no longer the same. Dealing with the darkness in such an intimate level for so long was with such a focused level of determination, love, and conviction had shaped us into something never seen before. Firsts were breaking out everywhere, situations that trillions of years of existence had no precedent to explain. We were all in brand new territory, stretching straight from Prime Creator right down to the brand new souls waking up to awareness and everything in between. We first started to notice the change in our operatives when they rejoined with us to either continue the push from the outside or to go back in, to continue pushing source light directly into the heart of darkness. They were one of two things. The outcome was incredibly painful to have to help the poor consciousnesses afterwards because they came back completely shattered and broken, requiring many healing lifetimes away from the prison planet. The other outcome changed all of us. They came back massive, with a level of concentration and raw power, completely and totally focused on releasing the innocents from their prison of suffering, and they immediately dove back in. They didn't even take time to reconnect with us. They went back faster, stronger, harder, each time, and they came back forged anew into something much more than they were before. They were forged in the fires of carrying the love of God through the ultimate darkness. They touched as many with their light as they could, pushed by a compulsion and fire they didn't understand while inside, but nonetheless couldn't stop if they tried. They came back so much more than we ever knew they could be. This transformation galvanized us. Many of us who had never felt the call to become operatives felt compelled to go in, simply from the energetic backlash of being near these beings of love and light that we used to call parts of us before they came back changed. We don't communicate with just language. We communicate with what your people would call telepathy, and we call this the language of light. We still use words, but our words have so much more to it than your people would understand as of yet. There are emotions and images tied into each word that we convey as we speak them, as we feel, see, hear, taste, and smell exactly what is transmitted with the words. And each word might have one or two attached sensations all the way up to hundreds. Being near our operatives was almost overwhelming, even for the brief few minutes they were back before diving back into the captured systems. They no longer spoke in words. They were pure, focused energy, radiating determination and an almost blinding golden connection to Prime Creator. They were like looking into raw source light, and they were almost completely unaware of us. Being near them was like being pulled into a river that completely overwhelmed every one of our senses, heightened over a million years of self-exploration, leaving us with nothing but a burning need to free the imprisoned light, to heal the shadow. And so we did. And finally, after what seemed like our whole existence, we tipped the scales. The darkness was in retreat, and we chased them down, cauterizing their damage and healing them back into source, sniffing out all the twisted roots leading in millions of directions across creation like a cancer, until we cornered them on one jewel of a planet, your people's planet, Earth. Here, the darkness had gone into extreme lengths to protect itself, holding almost 9 billion sentient incarnates along with countless billions of non-sentient incarnates hostage with a new type of technology, developed in desperation as the darkness realized it was going to lose its struggle, and switched its tactics from taking as much as it could to holding off the final moments for as long as it could. These etheric weapons worked on multiple energetic layers, including the physical, and if detonated, would start to nullify everything it came into contact with, all the way from the physical levels to the energetic, including the destruction of the soul aspects of billions of incarnates, and this was not an acceptable risk. The darkness had committed many atrocities in its run across creation, but never before had we had to factor in the destruction of the actual soul itself. And so we surrounded the entire solar system, cutting off any travel in and out, and directed all of our efforts at understanding this new technology and how to nullify it, and negotiating a surrender, which we knew would never happen, but the option always has to be open. Thus, we began an uneasy standstill. The bombs were not easy to observe without setting off automatic triggers, and even in observing them, we could not determine how they worked. The construction had occurred in a manufactured null space, so there was no energetic record or Akashic record of how they were made, or what they did, and we were helpless for the time while we gathered intel. And that was when we felt the call. With amazement, we watched parts of the Creator start dropping down through the dimensional fabric with an explosion of light and frequency, trying for the first time to fit the enormity of such an immense knowledge into the confines of 3D reality, anchoring in massive portals for pure golden source light. We watched these portals open up inside of the indigenous incarnates, our operatives, and various spots on the planet, flooding anything in energetic proximity with knowing and understanding. These portals were fluid, transferring to different locations and people, following the flow to where the light was needed the most. As they moved along their path, they pushed out smaller versions of themselves that grew into portals connecting to Source, just as strong as the original, interpreted as the love and light spreading from person to person, overwhelming each one in a complete understanding. And that light spread. It was not a static thing. It moved, it transformed, and it shifted, but most importantly, it was growing. It started on only 4 or 5 spots, and we watched as those turned to 10, those to 20, those to 40, those to 80, and so on. It started slow, but the more it was, the faster it became. The darkness flared up as twisted and rotten as we had ever encountered it before, but it was already too late. The individual portals of gold source light suddenly connected planet-wide, transforming into one singular brightness that completely integrated and transformed the shadow back into the light, ending the longest journey. These are the stories of those portals and our operatives. These are the stories of the trapped souls who woke up and broke their prison. These are the stories of us, of you, of me. And this is who we are. Who are the Starseeds? Us. We came from that. We are a part of this instantaneous healing, this instantaneous transmutation, but we're inside of time. And time takes time. And we have to play our part because the light's already won. The light has already integrated everything back in. It's just that we are delayed. We're behind. And because we are part of creation, well, we create this prison. And it's all through suggestion. It's all purely suggestion. There's nobody forcing us to do this. But it's a very insidious thing. It's very easy to convince yourself that you have not been fooled. It's very, very hard to convince yourself that you have been tricked. And this is where we're at right now. Now, why are we here? Purely to express the frequencies of who we are and where we came from. Each and every one of you, the reason that you're here, it's not because you decided, oh, I just want to, go see what's going on here. There was something inside of you. There was a pull. There was a spark that said, that. I don't know what that is, but I have to go experience it. And this is why. There's a guiding force to each of us. There is a pathway that our souls have experienced multiple times, that as we come into this space and we start to experience the lifetime, and we see the things that we enjoy, that we love, and then we see the things that we don't enjoy, that we don't love, this shapes us. It shows us what we prefer and what we don't. And by only going into who we are, can we navigate this? Because we know what's right, we know what's wrong, we know what's natural, we know what's unnatural. It's an instinctive sensation, and even if the world outside tells us that we're completely and totally wrong, we know. And this is what we're here to do, to express that knowing. Why are we needed? Well, there's a boundary or a frequency fence that's keeping the natural evolutionary flow from beginning. This is a process in which universal knowledge begins to express itself in epiphany, downloads and knowing that spark action to shape the species into a conscious collective capable of true creation. Magic, literal magic. We are needed in order to bridge that gap. We've already gone through the physical evolution. We've already activated and achieved planetary consciousness, activation, liberation. Our job here is to simply express that energy inside of a space that cannot naturally create it. These energies that come through from Source, they're supposed to filter through everything. They're supposed to have a base to find themselves, a transceiver, a receiver, a pineal antenna that starts to pick it up. And this is where the mystics, the magic starts to come through, where you hear about these people who go on these journeys where suddenly they are a different person. They come back preaching a brand new law of creation. Like, we hear about them all the time. Like some of the biggest religions on our planet were founded by these types of people. They were following that. They were expressing that. Same exact thing that's inside of each one of you. They were doing nothing more than cultivating that spark of life. And that spark of life that animates your body, that is God. How? Now, how do we do this? See, this is the big question. And when we're working inside of a system where mind is separate from feeling, it can get really tricky. And you can have all kinds of different complicated steps that your brain tells you that you have to go through in order to create these types of understandings and epiphanies. And yes, somewhat, but no at the same time, which is what we're going to be going into. If we can harness our monkey mind and give it a task, it's one of the most powerful tools you can ever have. But we'll get into that here. Humankind is an amalgamation of an epiphany from around the universe. Each positively oriented culture and race has found brilliant understandings, connections, and ways of being that transcend the physical reality they exist inside of. Many of us come from these spaces with the full realization of the energies steeped through lifetime after lifetime of evolution inside of these spaces. Coming to Earth means that we forget who we are on a mental level, but you can never forget who you are on a soul level, even if the world around you seems to be the exact opposite of what you know to be true. And as the natural soul evolution on Earth inhibits the expression of true divine energy, the souls who are birthed in the system never receive the frequencies and energies needed for planetary ascension. This is what I was talking about. These energies are always there, they're always flowing, they're always connecting. But if there's something in the way, you can't see it. Like think of an eclipse where the moon goes in front of the sun. We know the sun's there, we can see the corona of it, but can we get the full information? Can we grow crops in that? Can we suntan in that? No. It's very limited in scope. It is not the full expression. And so there is no spark of life inside of that. And so you have to have people who understand what that spark is to come inside, to carry it with them, to start creating a field that the collective can start to feel. And as a direct conduit to these energies, existing as a fully embodied starseed allows the surface population of humans access to the evolutionary frequencies that shift the universe. This begins the turning of the ancient wheel, the ending of an age, the turn of a page. This is the herald that sparks the collapse of the service to self systems and everything that they have set up. Look at the world right now. Look at the way the world is operating. We are seeing more fear, more domination, more control than ever before in human history. We've never had the opportunity for this type of control. We have advanced technologically to a space to where we're almost creating a virtual reality that we exist in right now. Why? I guarantee you it's not because they are in control. I guarantee you it's not because they're winning. Why would you go to those lengths? Why would you push yourself to that level? Why would you drive yourself absolutely insane with the amount of work that you have to do to keep all these stupid little people complacent? They're not winning. It's this right here. It's this swelling. It's this push, this, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I love it. That's what's starting to really push through at these barriers. And it's going to get worse, but it only gets worse if you allow yourself to fall into it. And this is what's so important about this type of an understanding, is because you don't have to be inside of the fire being burned. You can be inside of the fire doing whatever the heck it is that you want to do. You just have to learn how. Now, how do we dissolve this programming and ignite? There's no right way to do this. Each path is different for each person, yet the core values remain the same and revolve around the same energies. What would you do if money didn't exist? If you had no worries of food, water, and shelter for life, what would you do? What would you be excited to wake up in and engage in? What skill would you immerse yourself in? What do you want to master? What makes you naturally smile? These may seem like simple questions, but in reality, where how you feel creates what you experience, these are the most important questions. And we live in such a great illusion. It's so persistent, where your mind will tell you that you don't have control over the nuts and bolts reality outside of you. And yet, when you surrender into not fighting and you become the healer, you become the radiance. You shift reality. You can't help but notice it. It starts off with like little things like synchronicity and angel numbers and like quick epiphanies of downloads, and it rapidly evolves into, I know exactly what that person is thinking right now. And it starts to expand. It starts to, not only can I understand what that person is thinking right now, that person is feeling something that doesn't feel good. And I can feel so good that it shines so strong that they stop feeling that. Now, by following that urge, the piece inside of you that demands that you explore, play, and love, you start to open the door to your soul. The deeper into this passion and excitement that you dive, the stronger the light of who you are shines through. And that right there, this isn't a metaphor. This isn't like some happy thought or something like that. This is a true physical radiance. We can't see this light, not yet with our physical eyes. Our bodies are not advanced enough to see these multiple layers of spectrum that we exist inside of, but you can feel them. And you can feel them so strongly, it's almost as if you are seeing them. And if you're looking at somebody stuck inside of this world right here, that little tiny point of that little tiny body, and yet they're connected into the vastness outside, and they're shining that from the center of their being into the darkness. That's how the people here who don't have access to that energy start to say, what is that? What is that feeling? I have to figure it out. I have to know. I want that too. That's why we're here. It's that expression. And all perception is bioelectricity. Sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell are nothing more than the electrochemical firings inside of your nervous system that is processed by the brain. Senses are the way of observing the input around you. And so our nervous system, this bioelectric field, this resonance inside of us that it can see, it can hear, it can taste, it can touch, it can smell, it can do so much more. Like emotions don't even encompass those 5 senses, do they? Like you can tell that you can feel happy, that you can feel joyous, but can you reach out and grab that? Can you hold it in your hand? There's a level of tactile sensation that starts here that goes beyond the physical, already right there. And this isn't a simple thing. This is how reality is created. This is how we understand and start to, more importantly, be able to dance inside of creation and have it move around us. What you feel and think are the same bioelectric neurochemical reactions inside of you. Some of the sensations we enjoy, some we don't. By allowing your soul to begin experience an immersion in what you truly love, you begin to compound the bioelectricity. No longer is it a pulse of undirected energy. Instead, it becomes a battery, charging itself when needed. Now, what I mean by this is specifically what I take people through at my retreat. It's called the Golden Frequency Immersion Retreat, where we're together for a week, fully immersing ourselves inside of these energies. And it's transformational. It's truly transformational, and not just like on an emotional level, but physically transformational. Your body is so tied in with everything that you think and feel that your physical responses inside of you create damage if you're experiencing something uncomfortable enough. Think about trauma. Trauma's easy. Trauma's a really easy one. There's something that happened that you don't like. And whenever something that happens similar to that space, you don't like it. It feels like you were back in that original spot. That right there, it's not fun. It's not comfortable. It's not easy to be inside of. And yet that feeling right there, you're carrying it with you all the time unless you actively go in and start to clean it out, because it's all bioelectrical, biochemical mastery. And thoughts and feelings are only the surface level. And as soon as we start to go inward and we start to activate, we start to stay inside of that feeling. We make it stronger, we make it more active, we turn it up, we turn it on. It starts to radiate. It isn't just that one little spot that feels like joy. Suddenly joy is everywhere. And you're creating it like a sun. And that's the battery. It's almost like a cup that never empties. You know, and even if you knock your cup over, it doesn't matter. Just make a waterfall. Now, this battery is capable of holding an extended charge or a brand new flavor of frequency or energy that brings a complete paradigm shift in how the soul operates in reality. No longer is the soul along for the ride in a space that doesn't make sense. Instead, the soul radiates out into reality, sensing the deep layers that create the physical structures that we exist inside of. The internal sensations become external. Now that right there, being able to feel inside of your skin, like this is sovereign. We know everything inside of this. It's nothing more than a field. It's your bioelectric nervous system, the fiber optics of your brain and the way that your body feels. And when you turn that up, when you make it strong enough, it actively goes outside of you. Your internal sensations are outside. And this is the auric field that most people talk about. And you can go much, much bigger than that, but as soon as you start breaking out of the body and start feeling things on the outside, that's where you want to start putting your attention so that you can turn up the inside, feel the outside, and then you can go anywhere. Time and space means nothing. And if you can create an energy and a base for your consciousness to exist itself inside of, you can look through time just by paying attention to it. So it's like an easy one would be going back to a moment in your childhood where there's a point in trauma that you as an adult look back on and say, I don't like the way that feels. Every time this comes up, I get angry, I get sad, I get uncomfortable. By creating that field and pushing it back to younger you, which is something that's very intimately familiar with each and every one of you, you can go through time and start to clean out that damage, and it actually fixes now. So it's really important to start understanding that there is no limit. Like, just because you feel like an individual body doesn't mean anything. It's just you're an individual body that's severely limited to the scope of what you can do. Now, when this stage has been achieved, the Starseed can then practice shifting everything by alchemizing reality. In other words, if there's an energy, frequency, agenda that feels wrong, the Starseed can engage in transmuting that energy into something positive as easily as laughing, becoming a sun. This is where the brain gets in the way. This is where you hear the whole love and light community. There's nothing but love and light. Well, yes, but no. If you try to cover love and light on top of things that are rotten and feel horrible, you're only going to cover things that are rotten and feel horrible, and they're going to come up eventually. There's no way around that. This is the way reality works. This is the way all of these things work. If you have something painful, eventually you're going to have to deal with it. And this is physical, mental, emotional, psychological, energetic, it doesn't matter. It's all these levels. And when you can create a pure tone of something positive, pure, love, joy, gratitude, excitement, whatever it might be, whatever you can tap into, and then you hold on to that space, that feeling, and then point it towards where it hurts. And instead of going in there, get out of here, I hate you, rah, and fighting and beating it all up, instead going in there and saying, well, this hurts. If I go in there and beat it up, it's just going to hurt worse. Do I like this? No, I don't like hurting. This is awful. Ow. So take what feels good. Create the healing and bring it into that space. And this is where the brain gets in the way, because we look at things that we don't like as the enemy. And it's really easy to fight fire with fire. We've been taught a lot of that. However, as soon as you stop fighting, and as soon as you start sending in that healing energy into that space, it'll make itself known. Like, I don't have to try to sell it to you. All you have to do is do it one time, and you'll know exactly why it is so much more powerful to not fight darkness, but instead recognize that it's just hurt and be the healer. Because here's the thing about the Starseeds. We aren't here just for the people stuck here. What if you were separated from Source? What if the only thing that you could feel was rage and pain and hatred and sadness? I can't stand by and watch anything go through that. If I were that, I'd give anything for somebody to show me what gratitude feels like. I'd laugh without measure for somebody to show me what laughter feels like. I'd love beyond love for somebody to show me what that feels like. Because if I don't know, I'm never going to have that tool. I'm never going to have that understanding. I'm never going to truly recognize the scope of existence. I'm just going to be stuck in my crap, my little spot, my entire universe of everything that sucks. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't see something in that much pain and say, I'm going to go over there and kick your ass. Just can't do it. Absolutely not. So, this is why I'm a healer. I used to be a fighter. I used to fight all the time, hacking and slashing. Like, these things are scary if you start coming into contact with them, you don't know what's going on. And demons are attacking humanity from a very limited scope of perspective, which is where I came from. But they're not. They're a symptom. And crap draws flies. And if we have a bunch of crap inside of us, something's going to come to try to eat it. So, stop trying to fight the things on the outside and pay attention to where you hurt on the inside and heal that, because that's where the problem is. Now, this right here was an illustration I had created. This is what it feels like to me. This isn't a metaphor. This isn't a pretty picture. These suns inside of the body, some of you might feel them today. A lot of people who come to these types of conferences are already pretty energetically open, so it's really easy to start showing you guys how to activate energy. But if you don't feel this today, it's perfectly okay. You want to pay attention to what you do feel. Because what you do feel, that's the key. Because that's the next step. Because if you pay attention to where you're at and what you can feel, you can build on that. You can make that bigger. You can make that stronger. And even if it's just a tiny awareness, a tiny sensation, the more that you put your brain focus on it, energy flows where your attention goes. And if energy's flowing there and you harness it, it has no choice but to get stronger. But you'll see the suns inside of the body, they create the auric field. The auric field is very, very powerful and very strong if you have something inside of you that's shining. And it's really simple. You know, like it's not complicated. If you don't feel good on the inside, make yourself bright. You'll have no choice but to feel good. No matter if your brain tells you that this is going on or not. You can still walk through uncomfortable spaces untouched, perfectly safe, perfectly healthy, just by holding on to the resonance of safety, which isn't protecting yourself, it's creating something beautiful. Now, think of this process as if you and everyone you knew had been feeling a very limited range of emotion their entire lives. Survival instincts, familial commitment, laughter, crying, etc. And suddenly one day, you're overwhelmed with unconditional love to the point of incapacitation and a full neural rewiring, while everyone around you stays at the same limited point in which you came from. You wouldn't think, talk, or feel, or act the same as you did, being exposed to this brand new sensation that made you a different person entirely. You would change so drastically that the friends and family in your life would have no choice but to see the difference as well. And here's where the internal sensation begins to transform the outside world. They have never felt the swell of pure unconditional love that's now guiding your path, yet they have no choice but to recognize that there is a feeling, a power that is guiding your decisions and interactions with them. When aggression and hatred is the guiding factor, it's easy to respond in aggression and hatred. When unconditional love is the guiding factor, beings who operate in aggression and hatred cannot respond from that space. They are forced to expand outside of it, even if their own personal trauma makes it seem as if they have not. People like to hold on to their crap. It's just a way of life. You know, sometimes it even defines them. But if you completely change the way that you operate, and you don't allow them to trigger you, and you completely talk to nothing but the divinity inside of that person, they're going to have no choice but to shift out of it. And it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. It's instantaneous, absolutely instantaneous. And you can't be angry at somebody who's concerned for your welfare. You know, who genuinely is like, are you okay? Like, do you need a hug? Come here, man. Like, you can't be angry at that type of a person. And you can definitely put up a trauma barrier, a trauma boundary, and try to keep that person away, because if I let that person close, I'm going to hurt worse because they're exposing me to my pain. But that right there, I don't care how long it takes. That one interaction, it'll stick. It'll be one of those things that will be a guiding force that even 2 or 3 years down the road, they'll still remember that interaction with you. And hopefully they might choose something better. Because that's all we can do. Free will, it's a bit of a pain. All we can really do is be the best example that we can be. An invisible force of love that then guides the interactions with your family and friends will expose their consciousness to an energy, emotion, feeling that they might not be able to experience fully, but they can see the effects of it. They feel the way their bodies respond to it. It begins to open a door into a space that never used to exist. By living inside of that love, by letting it guide you, those who would never be exposed to that energy can begin to feel it in the distance. The stronger it becomes, the more they can feel the sensation inside of themselves until they catch fire and become a sun of unconditional love as well, shining out to all those who do not. This is the Starseed process. This is how we save our planet. You know, and there's a lot of attention, you know, storming Congress, hanging the bankers, you know, like, there's just going to be more people popping up on that level. There's just going to be a replacement for every single New World Order leader that we see right now. There's just going to be somebody else to take their spot. That's because the problem is not in the physical system outside. The problem is inside the heart of mankind, the rot that allows subjugation, slavery, domination. That's where we have to go. That's what we have to heal. Now, why emotion instead of light? I get this a lot. There's lots and lots of energy modalities out there that are really beautiful, that you can create some really powerful colors and lights and creations that they do work. You know, like this is where I started off, is making really bright light and then recognizing, holy crap, there's something dark, you know, and then just working from that level. But I was missing so much, like so much. Like it was almost like I was a really pretty colored robot. You know, like there was no feeling. It was like turn up the light, and the light was all that mattered, and the light would blow things up, and it would expand, and it would be amazing. I could, you know, do some miraculous work. I could pull pain right out of people's bodies with this, but I was missing so much, and it was a really uncomfortable experience actually that let me know about that. I'm gonna look at the time real quick, see if we can actually get into that. It's 10:44. I don't know how much time I have left. I think I have a half hour. I should probably get going. Long story short, I'd been fighting implants and entities for a long time, and well, they pretty much took me over one night. And it was the first time I've actually physically seen something next to me. It was a big, giant white reptile face that popped into existence right next to me. And they pulled me out of my body by squishing me out. And I'd always been strong enough. I'd always had that confidence, you know? It's like, there's nothing out there that's stronger than me. Except for that one time there was. And I remember just trying to light up as bright as I could. And I'm like, I'm just going to supernova it out. There's nothing that can get in my way. Boom! Oh, crap. You know, and it was one of those things that, like, they just kept on crushing in and crushing in and crushing in until I was this little tiny bubble right inside of my heart space. And then they blew me out. And so there I was outside of my body, completely separate, completely and totally weak, thinking to myself, oh, God. I lost, they're gonna eat me, ah! And it was scary. It was really scary. But the thing is that reality shows you what is real. And so here I was scared for literally nothing. They couldn't even see me. And like it was this giant pulse of darkness, this wave of universe that came after me that went all the way, and I'm watching this massive stuff coming at me, and I'm like, oh God, and then nothing. What's going on here? Like they're flowing through me. Like what is happening? Like where are they going? I'm safe? Okay, all right. You know, and so I started actually looking around and checking stuff out. I looked behind me to where they were going because it was like this current. And I go right to the edge of the current to where it's like this drop off, and it's this universe of darkness and all these nasty things out there, and then they're dropping off into this space, and it was like they were getting tiny. It was like they were getting sucked into a black hole. And I was kind of sketchy about it. I was like, I don't want to go in there, but I mean, what else am I going to do? My body's, I don't know. I've got nothing better to do, might as well. And so I let myself fall into that current, and I dropped into that pit. The next thing you know, there I am being molested as a kid. Right, physically right here. It was on that level. I could feel it to the left of my solar plexus. This knot, like this knot of very disgusting, horrendous energy. And that feeling right there, it was very disconcerting because here I was, I'm a beautiful being of light, I have no darkness, I'm amazing. But, you know, and it was nasty. It was truly, truly nasty. And so I'm sitting in there having to realize some really uncomfortable truths. Like, I am not just a beautiful being of light, I am a horribly awful being of darkness too, because that is stuck inside of me, and here I was thinking that I had nothing like that. And these things were gleefully feasting on this disgusting energy, and it was one of the most disgusting things I've ever felt. And then the epiphany happened. It's like, oh my God, they aren't eating my soul, they're eating my damage. I can look at them, they're starving, they're desperate. Like they're about to die. That's why they were fighting so hard to get to this. Oh, Eric, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong, man. And so here I am looking at this dark star sitting inside of me, just disgusting, radiating out darkness and nastiness. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, normally I just put light in it, but I mean, look, it's not even touching it. Like, that's nasty, it's disgusting. And then all of a sudden it broke behind me, and I felt like this sunlight open up. And it felt so clean and so good. And I turned around and I looked, and there I am, like 15 years old, getting stoned with my friends, laughing at movies. Like, we started laughing so hard, so hard. It was my friend Amanda's birthday. And there was like 18 or 19 of us, and we were watching some stupid Adam Sandler movie. I don't even remember what it was. But one person started laughing, and then the next started laughing, and the next thing you know, for almost 2.5 hours, we couldn't stop. Like, we just couldn't stop. Like, my cheeks hurt, my stomach hurt, my voice was raw, and I could not stop. And we didn't know what was so funny, had no clue. But that moment, it shone like a beacon, like a sun, and it felt safe. It felt... Hi. Boom! See, it felt safe, and it blows stuff up.
Something's up with that wireless mic.
So which one? Check, check, check. Check, check, check.
Can you maybe use this for the remainder?
Yeah, we'll just do that one.
We can use yeah, this one, keep that one.
All right, can you hear me?
Get this one back to me.
I don't think that was working.
This is for the recording.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, can you guys hear me?
No.
Nope, not yet. Still checking. Check. 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 I don't know. I don't know how this works, man. Like, I just talk and do stuff.
Right now?
Hello, hello. Aha. God, where was I? Boom. Okay. So, big old sun behind me, and that was the first time I pulled in the radiant smile. Because it was bright, it was clean, and I would pull light into my body and it would feel good, but this was the first time that I ever had access to something that felt like an emotion inside of it. And so I pulled that smiling light inside of my body, bigger, safer, stronger. They can't see me, they can't feel me. And I just start taking my body back, space by space by space. And I didn't do it by fighting. I didn't go in there and say, this is mine, get the hell out. I went in there and I said, this hurts. It needs love. It needs tenderness. It needs gentleness. And those things in there that are eating all that disgusting energy, they don't know what this energy is I'm creating. Like, look at them. They're like, what is this? It's gone. I had food here. There's nothing. I can't grab it anymore. So I started to show them what that feels like too. And that was the first time I ever actually, instead of blowing something up, converted it. Like, actually truly converted it. I showed it what unconditional love felt like. And then I watched one of the most amazing transformations I've ever seen. Something that was of pure darkness, that was of trying to destroy, of trying to control, suddenly expand into light. And then it poofed out of existence into the other side. And then it came back, fully integrated. Like, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, thank you. Like, and I felt an explosion of gratitude like I've never even experienced before. And it was truly magical. And that was the moment I put my sword down. And you'll never ever catch me fighting. I'll defend myself, no problem. You know, physically, etherically, mentally, it doesn't matter. I will defend myself, but I am not an aggressor. And I never will be. I'm a healer. This is who I am and what I'm here for. So. Now, the main reason is that powerful, positive emotions are light. There are many modalities of energy work around the world that focus on creating color and light to do the spiritual work, and it is effective, but only on the mind level of energetics, which is what we see. The mind is the center of sensory perception and reality. The soul does not exist in reality. The soul is concentrated feeling, which transcends time and space. The soul is the urge to do, to experience, to laugh, to love. And when the soul activates inside of its purest forms of energy, and then we mix that with the light of the mind, we create a body catalyzation. The bioelectricity of the body activates, the mind focuses the frequency of light accessed, the soul energizes the entire template, and the consciousness then moves the flow. Different points inside of the human body are capable of taking the swirling of mind, body, and spirit energy and storing, amplifying, and purifying it. Chakras, dantians. This activated energy is known as chi, prana, shakti, reiki, the force, etc. Whatever you want to call it, it's that feeling of movement inside of you, that tingling, that warmth, that activation, that epiphany. That's what it is. And today, we're going to learn not only how this works, but we're going to learn how to activate and project our own life force energy into the reality around us, thus creating a timeline bridge into any outcome you can envision, be that world healing or your own personal journey. Now, the way that this works, your heart, the chest, this is where all of your neural tissues start to form. When you're being formed in utero, it's all in the heart space. And as your heart forms, that pressure starts to actually give movement to the neural tissues. The top rises to become the brain and the spinal column. The bottom turns into the spinal column down into the intestines. Your brain and your intestines are the exact same neural tissues. Belly brain, anyone? Like, it's not a metaphor. It's true, truly, truly your belly brain. Problem is that this is the open system that we can communicate with. This is where we talk and think, but this is where we feel, where we understand. And the heart is the gateway from these two. This is where the neural tissues become physical in nature. This is where the neuromuscular systems become part of the neural network. And if you look up top here, this blue one, this is a neural tissue cell. This one over here to the right, this is muscle cellular structures. And this right over here is heart cellular structures. And if you look, it's almost like if we took the muscle and the nerves and mixed them together, we get heart. This is why when people talk about, working from your heart, why it's so important. You take your logical and your gut instinct, and you can combine it together to where not only can you take your perception of what you feel around you, you can take your logical knowledge of reality and mix it together. And this is where we get knowing. This is where we get intuition. This is where we get understanding. The iron in the water in our lifeblood is electromagnetically conductive, meaning if you turn up your bioelectricity strong enough, you'll actually get a physical response inside of your blood, the liquid crystal. The brain and the intestines are the same exact neural materials. The bioelectricity of the nervous system is how all of our body functions receive stimuli from autonomic functions to fine-tune motor skills. The heart is the transmitter from muscle memory to direct conscious awareness. By utilizing all of these spaces simultaneously, we can over-unify our bioelectric systems and field. By combining this over-unification with intention, we can create a subatomic pulse wave that can quite literally shift reality inside and outside of our bodies. Now, the role of trauma inside of energy work. When flooding the body with energies, emotions, and sensations that feel amazing, multiple levels of healing can occur, including a phenomenon called trauma release. The emotions experienced during a traumatic event in your life can be physically stuck inside of the neural and muscular tissues of the body. From like a chiropractic or a physical therapist or massage therapist perspective, this is where we find like tight muscles and trigger points that are physically pulling bones out of alignment that then create like a painful reaction. And if you go in and clean out the energy that is causing that painful reaction to happen, you'll completely eliminate the problem. This can present itself as pain, tension, trigger points, and general physical discomfort. And as the body experiences major release as clean energy floods through, if there's anything that does not feel open, healthy, and clean, it will by proxy stick out like a sore thumb. It will appear as a powerful sensation of good, followed immediately by a wave of not so good. Now, the human condition really easily points out things that are not okay. It's you can have 1,000 things that are working perfectly, but that one thing that is not perfectly is the one that you're going to pay attention to, isn't it? This is trauma release. If you find yourself getting stuck inside of thoughts, feelings, or emotions and sensations that you don't enjoy, that is a good thing. You're bringing it up to the surface, and if you have it at the surface and you have awareness of it, you can clean it out forever. You just have to you have to choose. You have to tell it what you want. And it's not, I want this with words, it's, I want this feeling. And you can go, that's the choice. Now, this is in actuality the best case scenario. That space hurting is exactly where you cannot hold on to light. But until you try to create light, it remains invisible. You cannot drive darkness out of yourself with darkness. That space hurting inside of you is not the enemy, it is a wound. Put down the sword and become the healer. It would not be hurting if there was not already something in there to experience pain. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Thanks, Martin Luther King. No matter what thoughts, emotions, or sensations might come up during this process, maintain the course of gentle softness. Honor what hurts, honor what feels amazing. This can lead to something called trauma release, in which you might find yourself laughing, crying, angry, helpless, etc. You might experience all kinds of different waves of emotion. Or you might just feel nothing but good stuff. Like, either way, it's the way that it works, and the path is always unique. Allow yourself to move through this almost as if those are only sights along the journey, nothing to give much attention to, and move into the activation that you know is possible. Now, before we get into the meditations, one of the things that I use, if you look over here on the right, this is the Dantian system, the neural tissues, brain, heart, intestines. And I use these specifically because on the left-hand side with the chakra centers, those are all glands. Glands operate when they have a clean bioelectric flow. And so I do use the chakra systems, but nowhere near as much as I use the Dantian systems. And so more than anything, I activate from my heart space, I activate my pineal gland, and I activate inside of my belly brain. And when they activate, you can actually flood the entire body with these sensations. And this is one of the things that we're going for right here. If you look at this bubble, this auric field, these colors right here, they're nothing more than a response that your body experiences from the light from the energy centers within. When you turn these spaces on inside of yourself, the body has no choice but to activate. Let's see, I think I've got, nope, not yet. All right, so I'm gonna have her come up over here and do some music in the background while we do this. I'm actually gonna sit down here too. All right, what I want everybody to do before we get started is we're gonna take some simple belly breaths. We're going to inhale and try to relax your pelvic floor, relax your tummy, relax your chest, and you're trying to breathe open your tummy as much as you can. And then the exhale, don't push it out, don't hold on to it. It's almost like your inhalation is filling up a balloon, and as you exhale, you're gonna simply release the balloon and let the air drain out naturally back down to that 0 point. And so let's sink into this for about 6 or 7 breaths all together here. Start to pay attention to the way that your abdomen stretches. This will show you right where you're holding on to tight muscles you didn't even know were tight until you try to stretch them. Last breath. Big, expansive belly breath, and as you exhale, relax as deeply as you can, drain it out. Fall back into your natural frame of breathing and just feel. Already the body feels quieter, calmer. This is because all we did was the opposite of fight or flight breathing. When you're inside of an unconscious fight or flight pattern, you'll clench your pelvic floor. You'll flatten your tummy towards your spine, and you'll be left with nothing but a shallow, forceful By doing the opposite, you've simply told your body, I don't want fight or flight. This will calm the mind. This will bring you deeper out of the surface alpha and beta stages, into delta, theta, omega states of brainwaves to where we can interact, where we can communicate with the flesh. And now that we're calm, I want you to simply take a slow belly breath inhalation, but this time, pay attention to the way that you feel, not emotionally, not mentally, but physically, like you're trying to point out the patches of skin that are sliding underneath your shirt. And all you're doing right now is, instead of thinking with your brain, you're giving it a task. You're saying, there's feeling here, I want you to pay attention. And the beauty is that if you can feel your skin, you can feel underneath your skin. Slowly inhale. Feel the way the muscles of the abdomen expand the skin, forcing it to move underneath your clothing. I'm already feeling some of you starting. You might have some tingling, some movement type sensations that are starting already. And if that's the case, I want you to pay attention to those just as much as you are the skin and the movement. But everybody, by paying attention to these sensations, it's almost as if you were hearing something that was quiet in the distance. By paying attention to it, it's getting louder. And this is the first body language command. We don't ask, we do. And almost as if you've got a volume dial attached to these senses, breathe deep and turn these sensations up. Don't ask your body to feel. Point your awareness so completely and clearly into this space that something starts to happen. You might be noticing spaces that are tight that you didn't notice before. Use your exhale. Show the body how to let go. Don't ask it to relax. As you exhale, feel your muscle cells starting to become so soft that they release the grip of the cell next to it. This relaxation gives us enough space to start to activate. The body has very specific responses to things that feel good and things that do not feel good. Case in point, you can tell when somebody's angry or sad because their body language shows. Their face, it's tense. Just like you can tell somebody's happy, excited, because their body language shows. I want you to all put a big old cheesy grin on your face, big old smile. As you inhale, I want you to breathe in, pulling the feeling of this smile into the soft muscles, into the skin that you were just playing around with. And as you exhale, you'll feel anything that does not smile, that doesn't feel good, starting to come up to the surface. Let it go. Feel the muscles softening around the discomfort. And drop it out. Almost as if it's heavy, and all you're doing is letting the heaviness do what it wants to, which is fall down right into the fires of Gaia. And pull the feeling of that smile in, spark. Pay attention to where you feel it activating. Exhale and let that space get a little bit bigger, filling your body a little bit more, letting those spaces that don't feel like this let go as an afterthought. And this is starting to open that doorway. This is starting to make it so that even if you don't know what unconditional love feels like, you can feel something that you can build upon. One of my favorites is my 4-year-old getting tickled. That laughter, that smile, oh my goodness. As you breathe the smile in, I want you to start to echo the sound and the feeling of a little child laughing, echoing in your bones, radiating through your flesh. And now turn this up. Make it stronger. Spark this feeling. Exhale and expand it so it starts to grow outside of your skin. Those of you with really good visual understanding, you're already seeing the light. Shine. If you're not seeing anything, if you're only feeling, shine. Make this sensation so strong inside of you that it starts to interlap and connect in with the bubbles of aura, that laughing light that the people around you are creating. And as Karila said, the miracle body. Allow your auric field to mingle, sending out the best of what you have to mix like a smoke, like a swirling of color outside of the body that's coalescing right in the center of this room, right at the top. I see you, Starseed. I acknowledge you. I honor you. And I want you to reach back to who you are, where you came from. That spark inside of you that knows this world is not correct. That feeling that sees the dichotomies of what's wrong and not natural and says, I can't do that. This is who I am. This is the pulse. This is the sound I resonate with. This is the dance that I move to. I want you to breathe that in, almost like you're pulling it from the center of the universe, right into you. And as you exhale, shine into this reality. Push upwards right to the top of this room where we're all connecting with our own flavor of who we are, where we came from. And build it up. Start to spin that swirling vortex of laughing love up above us. Make it a sun, so bright, so powerful, that it shines through the air, the waters, the earth, bringing that flame to everything, activating spirit. And in an ultimate service to others, reach for your very best. Reach for the best parts of you, the spaces that love, that enjoy, that dance, that feel. And ever so gently relax on that exhale and share it with the world. Expanding, surrounding our planet with exquisite brilliance. Ancestors of the West, ancestors of the North, ancestors of the East, and ancestors of the South, sacred ancestors above and sacred ancestors below, we honor you for everything that you created to make this point possible. The gifts, the exquisite love that went into creating the next generation, as well as the darkness, as well as the trauma that's passed down. And we invite you into this sacred center, this space of spirit, to fill all these empty seats, to share your majesty, your knowing. And it's with great honor that we accept. Thank you. To all my relations, aho. So this is the activation. It's the feeling inside of you. It's sacred. And the more we put into it, the more sacred it becomes. The more our consciousness expands to be able to hold on to more at one time, the more powerful it becomes, the more that immersion takes space. And this whole presentation, honestly, it was just the showing you guys why and what, because when we do the workshop, it's going to be how. It's not just creating this inside of yourself, it's then moving it through you, through reality. And that's what we're going to be going into. So one of the easiest ways that you can clean something out, I wasn't able to individually go into anything, we're kind of running out of time here, but this right here, if you were to look at this inhalation, if you were to spin that like a tornado into the space that feels uncomfortable, you can almost drill into it. And then as you exhale, you blossom that space open. You don't ask something heavy and hard and uncomfortable inside of you to stop being heavy, hard, and uncomfortable. You put joy and love into the very center of it, and then you blossom it open into majesty. And it has no choice but to release. It's one of the easiest things possible, but if you're looking at the thing inside of you like it's the enemy, it will be. This is how we can connect into Source. It's really easy. You just feel it up there. And if you can't feel it, you make believe that you can. Because the body, it's so suggestible. And even if you don't know what's going on, even if you're guessing, if you're doing something with intention, you will create sensation. Even if that sensation is small, even if it's tiny, that's a bioelectric activation that if you put your monkey mind onto and say, hey, pay attention to that, it will grow. The sensation will get stronger. And all you have to do, inhale from whatever you want to inhale from. This right here is a representation of what I consider source. That's the way it looks and feels like to me. It's a brilliant brightness, but it's so much more. That's just a picture. Like source is a feeling, an experience that when you pull it inside of yourself, you can experience it too. And when you exhale and send it down to Gaia, heart space down, you're making the conduit. You're connecting into Father, Mother, and you're the child, the center. Now, when we start doing Qigong, I'm not going to have my computer, so I figured I'd just, put these up here so you guys could see it. But when we start doing the Qigong, this is what this energy looks like and feels like to me. It's almost like I ignite. It's like I become on fire. And then that fire can then start to move. You can start to shift it. And you can literally move it out into reality. Like right here, if you look at my head, that's that source connection I was talking about. If you look at my feet, that's the earth connection I was talking about. I'm inhaling both of those, above and below, into the heart space, and as I exhale, I can send it out. This is how healing work is done. This is exactly how I do this type of work. I get somebody on my table, I inhale, I create that field, and it's clean, it's bright. There's so much inside of it that if there's anything that's not clean, that's not bright, that's there in that field of the person I'm working on, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like moving water over rocks. The rocks are very obvious. Any questions? Oh, I did a good job. Awesome. Oh, this is what I like. So, we got one here. Yes, that's here. So it's going to be, I actually don't know when it is. They changed the schedule around a little bit, but I'll make sure everybody knows. I'll look it up here. It's at 3?
Yeah.
Today?
The Qigong.
Yeah.
You're doing the Qi. Wait, no, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 3. Tomorrow at 3, everybody. Oh, by the way, I am doing sessions by donation. So I normally charge a fair amount of money because I like to show people how to do it instead of doing it for them, but I'll still do it for you if you're going to pay me a lot of money. So. But I'm doing it by donations. If you've got nothing more in your pocket than a smile and a hug, that's what's going to happen. So definitely be open for that. Thank you.